You may have noticed that our two young, wonderful servers today are in different outfits. And you might wonder, has Sister Pauline fallen down once again on the job? But really, the Vatican has decreed that for altar servers, the 11th Sunday of the year is always mix and match Sunday. So they're just doing what the Pope wanted them to do, okay? The gospel today begins with this beautiful scene. Jesus arrives at this place and he looks at all these people, and we're told that his heart was moved with compassion because they seemed to be like sheep without a shepherd. I've been trying to think about that, and the closest experience I think I have of that kind of a scene is whenever I take the L, or where I live, I take the 151 or 147 bus downtown. It's like seeing the lost sheep of Israel in some ways, because all sorts of people ride the buses, take the L, but it's interesting, there's not a lot of community, to say the least. People are like enclosed into themselves. People get on the bus, they very carefully look for a safe place to sit, and then they kind of raise their invisible shield. Lots of people are looking at their phones. Some people are reading a book. Some people are sleeping. But when you look at them, they also appear to me anyways to be heavily burdened. You can just kind of feel all that people carry within themselves, and that we only see when you're nosy, like I am, and looking at them, or when their guard is down, okay? When we are on a bus or on an L, we're not so worried about how do I look, because nobody cares. Everybody's in their own little modality. So Jesus looks at us with great love and great compassion, but he also sees how easy it is for us to get lost, to be people kind of living in different ways without any direction. And Jesus wants to respond. And he responds by calling his disciples and, in a sense, multiplying himself. This is an ancient strategy. If you go back to the book of Exodus, Moses' father-in-law, Jethro, basically at one point says to him, you know what, you're killing yourself, Moses. You can't possibly take care of all these people. You need help. And so they set up a whole system of leaders who are going to assist Moses in many ways. That's Jesus' strategy too. To how do we, in a sense, heal our world? Well, it's, in a sense, inviting more and more people to get involved, to take on the mission of Jesus. And Jesus believes, whether we believe it or not, that we're ultimately capable of that. And just think about your own experience. When have you been maybe lifted up by a friend, a neighbor, a coworker? When have you maybe been present to just lend a hand to really make a difference? We're all capable of it. This isn't the greatest image for the gospel, but since he's a reputable theologian, John Shea from Chicago sees that after Jesus calls these 12 apostles, he compares them to cattle drivers who have a certain amount of enthusiasm about what they're about to do. And so he kind of imagines the camera focusing on each one of the apostles on their horses, and they all go, "Yeehaw!" and take off. I'm not exactly sure that's how it happened, but I had the sense these first disciples went out with a certain amount of enthusiasm because Jesus believed in them. He had confidence in them. They were watching what he was doing, and they had some sense that he promised them they could do the same thing. I wonder about you and I. I don't exactly see or hear a lot of yeehaws around here when people are invited to be involved in a certain ministry or a certain work in the parish. On the contrary, I think what we sometimes suffer from is not only a sense of our own inadequacy, our own inability, but I think there's something else that infects us, and that is our sense of separateness from one another. We see that played out on all sorts of levels. We say, well, why don't they move to a community of their own kind? Why are they here? Somebody told me the other day that I think it's 20 or 25% of the children in the public schools in Glenview need free lunches every day. Glenview, okay? Multiply that. And so sometimes it's our sense of separateness that keeps us from seeing one another and seeing that we're relatives. We're all children of God. We're all brothers and sisters. Thomas Merton, the great spiritual writer and monk, spent the first maybe 10 years kind of under lock and key at Gethsemane Monastery. He never had any reason to leave until he had some serious health problems. And so he went into the monastery to get away from the world. And in those 10 years in the monastery, the first time he was taken to a doctor in Louisville, Kentucky, at 4th and Walnut Street, all of a sudden he had a very different sense. He looked at all the people walking around, shopping, doing all sorts of things, and he felt this great affinity. He felt that on some level he knew all these people, and they knew him. We're all in this together, he said. And that's really what we need to work on, to be able to listen to the news or read the news, see one another, not as strangers or the other, but as all children of God. And so we all share in this mission together that Jesus wants us to be part of, to make this world better, to do what the disciples did: heal, expel demons, fear, raise people up, and proclaim that there is a purpose, there is a meaning for every one of us being here. And we best discover it when we do it together.
Thank you for joining us for this celebration of the Mass. This virtual Mass is broadcast to hundreds of people every day of the week. You know, over 100 years ago, the very first celebrations of the Mass took place on the second floor of the Glenview Public House. It's been inconceivable that 100 years later, we would be reaching so many people all over the world through this technology. If you'd like to support the ongoing broadcasts of OLPH's Masses, please go to our website, go to Give Central, and you'd be able to support the ongoing outreach of this virtual ministry. Thank you for your support. Most of all, thank you for joining us in prayer. God bless you.